Okay, welcome everybody. Uh, my name is Alan Kingsley. I am one of the MBA advisors for Post University, and this is the Term 3 Business 700 Capstone conference call for everybody who is finishing up their MBA. Uh, with me tonight is Dr. Jim Loughran, our program chair for the MBA, Dr. Wayne Emms, and Dr. Prakash Menon, our instructors for Capstone. Tonight's call should run about an hour. I'm going to be mostly silent, but I will be monitoring chat. If you have questions, there will be opportunities to ask them. We have a good turnout tonight, so I don't want things to go to too much chaos. Just beware of whether or not your microphone is on, any background noise that we have. Everyone's been good so far, but keep an eye on that. And if you have questions, ask them in the chat. If it happens to be going on in the middle of any of our sections, I'll make sure that they get asked. But there will be opportunities to stop and ask questions out loud as well. And I think if everybody is ready to go, we should be able to jump right in.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Loughran, and most students call me Dr. L, and I oversee the several concentrations in the MBA program, as well as several courses, including this one. And this course is really meant to bring all your learning together. And really, as we start to go in it tonight, the first thing I want you to do is kind of put it all in perspective and be proud of your accomplishments. I know it's hard to think about that when you think about what you have still ahead of you and you're finishing a course right now. But you really accomplished a lot because the general population in the United States, it's somewhere around 40% has an undergraduate degree. And a graduate degree is closer to 10% or maybe even less, depending which state you live in. So you've really put yourself in a different group. And your hard work, although it doesn't guarantee anything, it certainly increases your odds significantly and opens a lot of doors that you may not have had before. So you should be proud, and we're proud of you. And all of us that teach the course, we do this for a reason. We want you to be successful. And I've always loved being the instructor in the last course because I really like to see the students at the end and see the skills that they have developed and help them with their project, which we'll talk about tonight. So we have some really great instructors. I know I'm probably biased because I selected these gentlemen, but I feel like they're just great instructors to help with this particular course because it takes a unique skill set, and you're going to see why as we go through the course. So I'm going to break the course down into different components of it. And so, the first one I put up, there's virtual teams, and I know there's like a sigh, oh no, I thought I was done with that, or, I really have had a lot of stress with that. But it is a part of the course. It's not the whole course, but it's one activity of the course that will be designed around a virtual team. And that's really the second bullet point, which is the simulation. And what we mean by a simulation is that you're going to be using software to run a company. And it's not a real company, but it's a simulated company. And you're going to really be a business selling to other businesses. And you're selling sensors, which might not sound like the most exciting business, but it really illustrates the necessary skills and critical thinking that is necessary to be successful in today's world. So as you start thinking about what are those skills and why do we have you run a business, is taking the things that you've learned in our program and applying them. And the highest level of learning is really, moving up the ladder. The lowest level is memorizing, and then the middle level is kind of analyzing, and the highest level is creating. And you're going to be at the highest level because you're going to be creating things. So you're going to take the information that you've learned in the program. We're not going to be giving you a lot of new information in this class except how to navigate the simulation. But you're really going to be taking a lot of the material that you've learned, and especially in those core courses, and applying them. So what is it to run a business? Well, you're going to be able to make the decisions that you would in a real business. And those decisions would be around marketing. What products are you going to have? Who are you going to sell to? What price will those products be sold for? What markets will you be in? What markets won't you be in? Just like any market, there's going to be a higher end, a lower end, a high tech, a low tech, and so on. And so you'll be able to decide, are you going to serve all those markets? Where are you going to put most of your emphasis? It's going to be based on a strategy that you have, and you're going to work in a team approximately, depending on the size of the course. We usually have 4 to 5 different members on each team, and there's usually approximately 2 to 3 teams in a course. And then there's also a couple computer teams that you'll see in there as well. And you're going to be competing in this marketplace of selling sensors. And so you'll have marketing decisions that you'll have. You'll also have production, which is, I would argue, one of the most important in a sense when you combine it with the marketing is how much are you going to produce, of which products you're going to produce. And a little hint right from the get-go is that those decisions around marketing and especially centered on how much you're going to produce is the most important learning in the entire simulation. If you produce too much of a product, it will cause overstocks, which will hurt your bottom line. You get a lot of different reports in this simulation, just as you would in your own business. A profit and loss, probably the most important report of all. If you write anything down tonight, just know that there's something called a Capstone Courier, which has the most, I would say, crucial information in there in terms of your sales and how much you've reduced and comparing yourself to the other organizations, your overall profitability, and also looking at the prices of your products compared to your competitors and so on. So it has a lot of different information. There's also a balanced scorecard, which you would have in a real organization, of how you're doing on different metrics. And so you're analyzing those things and making decisions. Those decisions we call rounds. And so you're going to have several different rounds in the course. We have a couple what we call practice rounds, where it's just to get used to the navigation, get used to each other. We have a assignment early on where you develop a charter, where you decide who's going to do what, whose responsibilities are. You'll likely pick a leader, and you'll go with that charter throughout. One of the things I'll say strongly in this particular class, having been overseeing, I've taught it for, gosh, I know 5 years or more than that. And in all those years and all those courses, I would say that the students overall and the teams have functioned very well, and very, very few issues with team members. And the reason I think for that is this is the end. Students, don't want a drama. They want to get through this. And so we really try to think about how to help you guys succeed. We will never give you the answers, though. Sometimes I just had one come to me recently saying, can you tell me how to fix, my inventory issue? And the answer will always be no. But, I'll tell you the kind of some things to look at, or on the big picture of things. And there's also a phone number you can call with the simulation. And the simulation we use is called Capstone. And they're available 9 to 9 Eastern time, or you can email them on weekends. And they're available Monday through Friday. But they're very responsive and very good to work with. But they won't give you the answers either. But they'll at least explain what the data means. They'll at least explain where to find certain things if you're confused. We find most students are confused in the first week or so. And after that, they start to learn how to navigate the simulation. When you start the course, you'll be given information from your professor, and an announcement will tell you how to access the simulation, how to sign up for it. You do that early on, and then you spend that first week navigating it, and then your professor will tell you what team you are on, and then there'll be the team function in Blackboard will be where you will communicate. Most teams communicate well beyond that. We don't dictate beyond that what you use, except we want to make sure it's something that all folks are able to use. We have students from all over the world, and sometimes some of the apps that folks select or whatever online platform they use to communicate, you got to make sure just able to use in other places, and also respect each other's time. Obviously, we have folks from Hawaii, which I would love if you invited us all over there, and pay for our trip, and we can we can have meetings over there. I'd be all for it. But unfortunately, the time zone makes it, challenges. You got to think about what are those times that you guys can meet that. And we have students from Germany too, which I believe is a 6-hour difference. So knowing all those kind of things is very important to teams working well together, respecting each other, and learning the skills that you've learned in your courses, especially around leadership, communication, respecting differences, and so on. So as you go through this simulation, as I said, there's rounds, a couple practice rounds, and then you go through our what we call competition, which is the actual rounds, and those 5 rounds are done through the remaining weeks, through week 5, and then week 6, you will do the simulation on your own. And so you have an individual component, and that's called Comp XM. So as you sit and reflect about this, it's important for you to really engage with your team because obviously you want to be a good team member. There are peer reviews that are highly weighted. So if you don't do very well, you're not engaging with your team, your grade will be affected. But equally important is you'll be affected when you try to do that simulation by yourself and you haven't been fully engaged, and you let the team to make those decisions for you, and not deeply involved in it. So I want you to think about that as you're moving along, is that you want to understand the simulation so you are ready for it individually. So when you go individually, you'll be doing the rounds on your own, and then you will also be taking an exam on your understanding of the simulation, which will all be part of your score for the individual portion. That happens in week 6. So bottom line to the simulation is that you're selling different things. You're making decisions on marketing, production, quality. A couple terms ago, I had a student send me an email and said, I don't understand why we aren't selling products. Yes, our quality is low, but our price is great. Well, think about that for a minute. Just because you're paying less for something, you still expect a fair value, right? Not that it is terrible, not good quality. So you always have to think about the quality, especially in terms of the niche and market that you're selling in. So you never discount, what's important to the customers, and you'll get all that information and what's important to each of the different markets within the segments of the different products, and you'll learn that as you're going through it. There's a really nice manual that's offered that you'll be able to see and learn. As I said, there's support for you if either through email or phone if you have questions navigating the simulation. I'd say in general, students really do enjoy the simulation. They like it. Once they get used to it, the first week you might feel overwhelmed, but once you start working with your team, when you make decisions on the rounds, it starts to make sense to you. And so my hope is that you'll be able to utilize what you've learned, especially in the operations management course, the strategy course, and those kinds of things as you go through. So that's the simulation. And then I'm going to go into the actual project, but I'm going to stop for a moment and see if you have any questions on the simulation part. And before I do that, Dr. Emms, do you have anything you want to add to what I talked about?
Oh, Dr. Emms, you're on.
Yeah, I cannot hear Dr. Emms. I'm sorry.
There
you are.
My apologies. I was on mute. Yes, I do have a couple of things, but I thought before I do that, you normally do an awesome job on peer reviews. and you didn't address the peer review, so I didn't know
Yeah,
if you wanted to.
I was going to do that later as we get into it, so I'll talk about that.
Oh, okay. Okay, so a couple of things. So just to sort of reiterate a couple of the points that Dr. Loughran mentioned. Yes, you should have Capstone, their phone number and their email address so that you can reach out to them when necessary. The other thing that Dr. Loughran mentioned was the team member guide. So when you go into Blackboard on Sunday or Monday, first couple of days of class, you go into the Unit 1 materials, you'll find the team member guide. It's about 35, 40 pages, so you're probably not going to print it, but I would, download it so that you've got it handy. As Dr. Loughran mentioned, there's different ways to meet. So whether it be Collaborate or Zoom, pick something that works for you and that people can have access to. One of the things that I strongly recommend that the students do when they first go in is go into your team. Depending on the number of students, it looks like there might be 3 teams for the class this term. So those teams are Andrew, Baldwin, and Chester. So go into your team and provide your personal emails, personal phone numbers, and sort of the best times that work for you to meet, because you will want to have probably weekly meetings. And my last comment is there are sort of 4 roles: finance, production, marketing, and R&D. And my recommendation would be that you take a role in the first couple of rounds, but then rotate the roles so that you get a chance to do each one of the roles. The reason that I suggest that is it'll give you a better opportunity when it comes time to the week 6 individual exam. So if you've worked on all the 4 different roles over the team component, you'll be much better prepared for success when it comes to the week 6 exam. So those are the comments I had. Oh, the last thing was, if you do have travel plan or your internet's not working, you're sick, make sure you post a note to your team in the team forum. Let them know that you're down for a day or 2. That way, they'll know that they need to make alternative plans to get the decisions made. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Emms. I think you're coming in a little choppy at times, a couple of students said, but I'll kind of reiterate the important points that you made. And hopefully I'm coming in okay. And if everybody could mute themselves, I think that would be very helpful. I think that might be causing some of the issues. But Dr. Emms really stressed the importance of, knowing your role. If you want to change your role as a team so you learn the different areas as you're going through, that can be a very wise strategy because that will allow you to be more well-rounded as you go into the comp XM. So I think it's a really important point. He also talked about the importance of communication if things are happening, to you personally, and it's going to affect your performance on the team, is to be very upfront with your team. And obviously, you'll have to catch up. And if you're, one time that something came up, that's understandable. Every time that's a little different situation, and that's probably going to affect your peer review. And then usually with the peer review, I just want to emphasize that you get a couple times to evaluate. You have time, if you didn't do very well in the first peer review, you have a chance to improve. But if you average between a 4 and 5 on that peer review, that you will get all full points for the team assignments. But if you don't, then it will be reduced. We don't have many reduced in this class. When I say many, it's usually not even one a class. It's usually maybe a handful a year, most, and that's probably even high. So, most folks do very well. You access the peer review through the simulation. And so there'll be instructions that will tell you how to lead there. You'll have dates that they're due, and they're due a couple different weeks in the course. And so if you didn't do very well in the first peer review, it may affect your score, but you'll have an opportunity to make improvements among that peer review. And we average it all. So if you have, one person that you've had challenges with, obviously as professionals, we want to make sure we work through those challenges. But, with the 4 people on the team, we take the full average in there. And so we look at those evaluations, and then we score your team assignments. Dr. Emms, anything you want to mention on those peer reviews that I didn't?
No, you covered it.
All right. And Dr. Menon, anything you'd like to add to the simulation?
I guess both of you covered everything. I just want to add that the simulation is totally a collaborative venture. So make sure that you work well as a team and stay connected with your team members. Thanks.
Yeah, the first 5 weeks is definitely collaborative. The 6th week is individual in the simulation, but it's based on the knowledge that you accumulated in those first 5 weeks. So I think a lot of folks, as I said, have fun with that simulation because you're really able to feel as if you're a senior leader in an organization utilizing the information that you learn through our program. I'm going to ask you to move up these the document a little bit for me. And so as we talk about the Capstone project, this is a project that you pick yourself. The professor doesn't pick it. This is something that you will be working on from the very beginning of the course. And we usually have 2 major buckets that these projects come from, and then we have a third kind of a hybrid. And so the first one, and the most common one, is what we call a business proposal. And what we mean by a proposal is that you're proposing something to make an improvement or take advantage of an opportunity. And we like you to pick your own organization. However, we know that may not be practical, like maybe between jobs, maybe this job is not, you don't plan on staying long and you don't have a passion for it. And so you want to pick maybe a future job or your dream job. But whatever the particular case is, most of our students pick the current organization they work for, and they pick a project that they care deeply about. And I usually say the first thing you should consider as you think about this proposal is to think about what you have passion for. And I don't want you to pick something your boss has passion for. I want you to pick something you have passion for. This degree you did for yourself, right? Obviously it's going to help you in your career. Obviously it's going to help your organization, but ultimately it's a sacrifice that you put in. I want you to pick a project that you care deeply about. And when I said it doesn't have to be your organization, we've had awesome projects on nonprofits. So if you have something you're passionate about in your community, then you should consider that as well. And so what is this, as I said, a proposal to make something better, to improve something. So, or take advantage of an opportunity. So the first things you can think about is you got to tie it to your concentration. So whatever your concentration is, that project needs to tie to it in some way. So if your concentration in the MBA's leadership, it better have a leadership tied to it. If it is, in finance, what's the finance tie? And then the project management, is it a project? I don't know, 95% of these are a project in some way. And so that's usually a pretty easy fit to be able to get that concentration in. And certainly we have innovation concentration. So we think about, is it innovative? How is it innovative? Is it truly what we like to call blue ocean? In a sense, is it cutting edge and will change the marketplace? Now, those are just a few examples. We'll go in more detail in a moment, but that's the proposal piece of it. The second bucket that you could go for is a business plan. That's a new venture. So if your passion is opening your own business, and I think all the professors have taught the class. We've had everything from microbreweries to restaurants to consulting businesses. For example, if your concentration is leadership, you might consider, creating a business around consulting with different leadership training programs and starting your own business doing that. And we've had that several times as well. And so there's no right or wrong between a business plan proposal. I will say those students have entrepreneurship as your concentration. I cannot think of a student that was an entrepreneurship concentration that did not do a business plan. But we've had every other concentration do business plans as well. As I said, a very high percentage of our students do proposals just because they're in a job. It makes sense. They have passion for something that they want to improve in their organization. And talking about the improvement, common things that we see would be things around employee engagement, employee retention. We see a lot of marketing for those marketing folks. We see things around, new products, new services, serving a new market, those kind of things. Social media plans. So around a product or service or of a strategic plan for social media in an organization. Your professor will approve your topic early on, but the questions we always ask would be, one, do you have passion for it? Why do you have passion for it? Secondly, does it tie to your concentration? How? Thirdly is, do you have access to the resources that you need? And so as we think about those different resources, I want you to think about your project. So if you're doing something around retention and you want to improve employee turnover, you want some HR reports. You would want to look at perhaps the employee satisfaction survey, hiring practices, the onboarding processes, exit interviews, all those kind of things to understand the retention issues in the organization. And that would be same if your topic was around diversity, inclusion, and equity, and you're looking at developing a strategy around that, you would want to look at reports that apply to that. And so you want to find out early on in your organization or the organization that you desire to work with that they are going to be able to give you that. So we don't want you to pick an organization that you do not know or have any connection to and just try to get the reports off the internet. We had a student a while back who just loved Pepsi, and particularly loved the product of the Pepsi soda. And this student believed strongly that peppermint Pepsi would be the most desirable soft drink on the marketplace, and believe that peppermint was the highest desired flavor that's not currently offered. But this person had no data to back that up. Also did not work for Pepsi, know anyone at Pepsi, understand any marketing around that, and that wasn't approved. And so we want you to be able to have access to the information that you need. That's also true in your business plan. When I've had folks that, I think I had folks, one I remember was a karate studio, and that student had to get access to, what's the market for karate studios? What is the trends in that particular field? And doing research and using post library to do the research to understand the business, understand the different niches that are available in that business and how to target market. And they even contacted somebody that owned that type of business like that, and not their community, but even in another state. And they were able to reach out in LinkedIn and kind of understand what they did, how they were successful in the business, and they were not direct competitors whatsoever. And that was a really smart strategy to be able to gain information. So we want you to be able to get this, but check now, make sure you have access. If you don't have access, and you need to modify your topic so you can be able to get the information that you need. question came up, and I read it quickly, so I hope I got it right, was, well, what about if they won't, want their name mentioned? Work with your professors. We work all the time with students to change the name of the organization. No worries on that. We've even had students want to write about post-university, and we've asked them to change, the name of it. And so you can call it Organization A or whatever you want to call. We don't care so much about the name. What we care more about is the experience, what you're doing and getting the information. So if your organization does not want to release it because they're worried about it, then tell them you're not going to use the name. If they still won't let you use it, then you're going to have to be able to if the data can't be shared, then you can't do that project. You're going to have to look at something else or see what kind of data they would share. Now, you can even work with your professor on, and I'm the type of professor, I don't care specifically about the actual data as much as I'm considering that you have data. And if you want to change the numbers around a little bit to protect the innocent, as long as you're making sense of those numbers, work with your professor. If that makes sense, I've done that before and organizations have allowed the student to use that if they told them they were going to change the data to protect the organization. But with all that said, what's really more important than any of that is making sure that you still have access to this information to make sound decisions. And so when I say changing the data, what I mean is change your numbers a little bit so it's not recognizable to what the organization is. And so they can feel good about it. But if they're so strict with no information, can't use it, you can't get approval, then I would look at a nonprofit, another organization, or something different in an organization that isn't so confidential that you can utilize information. But I still want you to keep the passion that you have in the topic. What I don't want you to do is go in, into the course, get into week 2 or 3, and never ask anybody, and then you're shocked to find out you can't get the retention numbers. We don't want that to happen. Question: you're not working in your career and your concentration. Well, then what's your dream job then? Why are you in that concentration? And so you should be thinking about how you can do a project in that. I don't think we ever had a student that couldn't come up with a way to connect their concentration. We've even had folks start businesses and we're able to tie in the leadership concentration. The one, usually most of the time, the one has the toughest to tie in is usually leadership. But just remember, if you're project management, we can pretty much everything's a project, and work with your instructor and see how you can tie those project management concepts that you learn and be able to apply them in your project. Entrepreneurship, I already talked about that. In terms of finance, that's another component that's required. There has to be a financial component somewhere in your project. And so if you're even somebody who's not a finance concentration, you're going to be doing some finance, and that might be different depending on what project. A lot of times it could be a cost benefit analysis. You're developing a proposal and you're saying, what did we gain and how much is this going to cost? If you're talking about a new business, well, that's certainly going to be different. You're going to be looking at a lot of different things and work with your instructor on developing those types of things that you need to start your business, and starting costs and operation costs and those kind of things as you start moving along. So when you think about your concentration, think about it in the broadest sense and how you can utilize what you've learned in your program. I'm not sure, somebody's asking me to scroll up. I don't have ability to do that. I don't want to lose where I'm at. Can you tell me what the question was about scrolling up?
Oh, yeah. Did I scroll up to see the letter D?
I'm not quite there yet, so I'll get to that point in a moment about the different MBA requirements. But at this point, the project will be individual. You're not working with a team at all in this particular project. You're going to be working individually. You're going to be building this as you're moving along. It is a 20-page minimum paper. That might sound like, oh my goodness, I have the simulation to do, and then you're asking me to write this. This is done in components, like in sections, and you're averaging somewhere around 5 pages each time every, a couple weeks. So don't worry about meeting the 20. Most students are well beyond that. And so that I don't ever recall somebody saying I can't write enough to get my paper done. There'll be plenty. What the issue usually is too much, and being able to tighten it and be very specific what you're focused on. And you'll also be doing a 10-minute presentation, which will be recorded and available for you to present on the discussion board. And we don't have traditional discussion boards like you have in other courses. A lot of your courses had questions that you answered and so on. We don't do that. We have what I would call a kind of a mini discussion board where you put up your draft and get feedback from the other students in the class, and then your instructor the following week will give you feedback and how to make improvements with it. Ultimately, with the Capstone project, you said it's a business plan, it's a proposal. I said it could be a hybrid, and sometimes what I mean by that hybrid is you might have something where it's not for a specific organization. So for those that aren't you have no desire for your organization, you could develop something that could be used for any organization. So for example, we had a student that did a strategy for social media marketing for the retail sector. And so, that could be used as a consultant for any company in the retail sector. And so that was their focus. They were a marketing concentration. They didn't tie it to a specific organization, but they tied something that they learned in their concentration that will help. And so that's the third possibility. And we don't have a lot of students choose that, but when you're in a situation where you can't get the data for your organization, but you can get broad data about the industry, then they choose that one. And a lot of times broad data about the industry can be found in associations for the particular industry by doing research on those journals that are specific for the industry, or a trade, journals for the industry, and finding out those kind of things too. So we try to give options that will work best depending on a student's situation. And we realize one size doesn't fit all, but what we really want to do is have you pick something you care about, you care deeply about. I'm going to stop for a moment. Dr. Emms, anything you want to add?
Yes. Sorry. Two quick things. Number one, what I would suggest is that probably by Thursday of the first week, you would come into your instructor, Dr. Menon or myself, with the idea that you're planning for your topic. That way, if you come in, say on Thursday, we can give the instructor an idea of what you're thinking about, why you're thinking about it, how it ties into your concentration, and that way we can sort of give you a heads up right away whether that's going to work or not, so that come Sunday when it's due, you'll be better prepared to have a good submission on the due date. And the second topic that I have is when you're thinking of your project, and this is more for the business plan for people that are sort of thinking of creating their own business, and Dr. Loughran mentioned brew pub. My suggestion for those types of businesses, keep them simple. I've had a couple of experiences where I had one student wanted to create a series of men's barbershops, and this individual wanted to open up like 1,000 barbershops, which would make the project totally unmanageable. So we sort of decided, why don't you just start with 2? Keep it simple, tone it down. You may well, at the end of the day, want to open up 1,000, and good luck. I hope that student was able to do that somewhere down the road. And then the other one was, I had a student that wanted to open up a brew pub, but what the student envisioned was, having the brew pub, but then they wanted to turn it into like a nightclub at night, and it just got really unmanageable for the students. So we sort of agreed to, let's just do the brew pub, open Monday to Saturday, hours from, like from noon until 6 or something. Keep it, forget the disc jockeys and the nightclub area. Just sort of concentrate more on the micro brew pub itself. So that would be my suggestion. Come in early with your ideas, and that way we can figure out quite quickly whether it's going to work or not. And then just keep it simple. You may envision a grand business somewhere down the road, but for the purposes of this class, just keep it a little bit more on the simple side.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the important pieces of this course and this project is going back to Business 525. That was your strategy class. And this really is around a strategy, whether you're doing a business plan, a proposal, or that little hybrid I talked about. You have to come up with goals, which are the big picture, and then SMART objectives. And as you're developing this plan, and remember SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relative, and time bound. And so I would say, in my experience, that is the area students struggle the most with in the entire course, is developing. They know what they want to do, and they usually don't have a difficult time with the goals, but these SMART objectives, which to me is the really critical thinking, is very difficult for a lot of students because they have to figure out how they're going to measure these different tactics. So you're going to have, the big goals, and then these SMART objectives, what I like to call tactics. And the goals are what you want to do, and the tactics are how you're going to do it. And so that is sometimes very difficult for students, and you have to really think that out in terms of, hey, how am I going to measure it? What am I specifically going to do? And when is a reasonable time to get this done? And so that's just a great example of a core course that is fundamental part of this course. And so if you need to go back and look at that, your notes about SMART objectives, or do a little research before the course, that would be very helpful to you. Dr. Menon, what would you like to add?
Well, I guess both of you covered most of it. Just a couple of things that come to mind is what I do with my students is I let them, come up with some ideas and have kind of a brainstorming session the first week, maybe the first 2 or 3 days, so that they don't have to come to me with one project, and they may have other ideas. And oftentimes we discuss, and it may not be the first idea they come up with that will be their final project. But they may have a second idea which may be more viable and more doable in the 8-week period. So I tell my students to come prepared for that kind of a brainstorming, so that we can discuss and pick the right thing that will work for them.
Great.
Thanks.
And Alan, could you pop in any of the questions that may have been asked? I tried to see them. They popped up quickly, and I may have misunderstood them or missed them all together.
Yeah, no, I think you actually got everything. I think the last question was cost benefit analysis will suffice for a corporate finance concentration. Yeah, no, we've had no other questions since then. So
yeah, and I think the question around cost benefit, work with your instructor if that would work for your particular topic. But for a lot of topics, especially around the proposal type, it works very well. But I would work very specific with your professor on that one. I would take this time now before your course starts, and think about your topic. There's no perfect topic. Don't stress you out too much about it, but I really want you to think about your passion, having your resources to tie to your concentration, and thinking about how this can help you, in your career and your overall. Obviously, you want to help your organization, but we do have students that just say, well, I don't like this, but I'm going to do it because of my job. You're going to be spending an enormous amount of time, and I think it will affect your grade a lot of times when you don't have the real spunk to push through. You're going to hit walls, over the next couple months. And if you have a passion, you care deeply about it, it will show when you hit those walls. But you have great professors here that will help you along your journey, and you'll be building this as you move on, and they'll help you with that. And then the last piece I want to talk about, the D that a student had questions about. There's 2 other components to this course that I throw under MBA requirements because every student has to complete it. The first one, the Common Professional Components Assessment, we often call the Peregrine. That's a national exam. And that exam is not evaluating you, although you probably feel like it is when you take it. It's a timed exam. We do not grade you on the score that you get. We grade you whether you completed. Obviously, we want you to do your best effort. But the reason we do it is to evaluate our program. You're at the end, and you're going to be getting questions on the different areas that that nationally is expected of an MBA student that they would have knowledge on. And so you'll have, marketing questions, and you'll have finance questions and human resource questions and so on. You'll probably have some questions of courses you didn't take because other MBA programs offer it, like business law. But what we care more about is those things that we are offering. How do we compare to other similar schools? And look at it from a macro level. Occasionally, professors and myself will get an email from a student saying, I'm so disappointed in my score. I worked so hard, and look at the score. I must not have learned anything. That is absolutely not the point of it. And we know some people are better test takers than others. We just want to look at our program and have some sort of, going back to the data, having some sort of data so we can make informed decisions on what programs have strong results, ones that are less strong, comparing to similar schools. The next one is probably my personal favorite in the entire course, is the reflection video. And that reflection is a reflection of you and your journey in the MBA. And you could talk about, why you're here, why you went for it, what programs had what courses had the biggest effect on you. You could, discuss your highlights. You could also talk about those things that were personal challenges for you, what you would do differently, or what the university could have done differently. We don't grade you whether it's positive or negatively. We grade you on what you feel, that you met all the outcomes on the rubric. But what we really like about it is the sincerity and the passion we see from our students. A lot of you have stories. You may not want to tell all the stories, but those things that you feel comfortable discussing. Many of you are first graduate of any degree in your family. Some of you may have experienced a great amount of challenges getting to this point, whether those challenges were around your education, balancing your work, your children, whether it be a tough upbringing. I just got a note from a student recently telling me about they never in a million years ever thought they would get to this point because they grew up in a challenging life and around a lot of people with substance abuse, and they felt that was going to be their life. And getting this degree really allowed them to see what they accomplished and be an example for not only their children, but for other children in the family, feeling they could make a difference. So I want you to think about that as you finish here and what example you can be and what your future holds for you. To me, this is just one step. And many of you get this degree for different reasons. We had a student, and I didn't ask this question, but they shared it with me, that they were 78 years old, and they were getting this degree solely for their bucket list, that this was very important to them, and a life journey that they had, and they wanted to be an example to their grandchildren. And so not everybody does it for their job. Not everybody does it for income, but we all have a reason. And I want you to think about that as you reflect. And I always tell students, don't forget the why. And my hope is that you'll be a lifelong learner. Maybe you won't be crazy like Dr. Menon, myself, and Dr. Emms and getting a doctorate, but we certainly encourage you, if you want that, or to be a lifelong learner, whatever that means to you, and use this as a stepping stone. But this class, I hope you can see it, brings in multiple parts of your program. You have presentations, you have reflections, you have papers, you have team, you have qualitative and quantitative aspects. So we really try to bring many different aspects. So you're not just, this is not a math class by itself. It's not a writing course by itself. And it's not a total team course by itself. It's a little bit of everything. And we did that for a reason. I'm going to open up to overall questions.
Hi there, Anastasia here. So I had a few questions for you. One was, we've had a couple courses with group work in the past, and I know you've probably gotten a lot of questions on this, but in the past, there have been students that have been able to take the course with a pass-fail option, and that's really been frustrating for those of us who are taking the class for a grade in the group setting. So my question was, is anyone able to take the capstone with a pass-fail option? And then would that be considered, would those students be placed in a group together instead of with students who are actually taking this course for a grade?
Well, great question. We do not allow pass-fail for the capstone. That's not an option for this course. I'm very passionate about that because we want everyone to give their best interest. And Alan knows, we've had some students interested, but we specifically ensured that that policy's in there. The capstone's not part of it.
That's right.
Great. Thank you. I was also curious about the CPCA, that assessment or exam. Is that something that we take during our capstone? Does it cost money? How do we register? What does that process look like? I hadn't heard about that before.
Yep, totally free. You get a link to it. You can take it on your own time. But we put it in there. Guys, you got to remind me, is it week 2? I think it is. Is that what it was?
Yes, week 2.
Week 2. So, anytime in week 2, you can take it. And it is a time exam, so you can do it whenever you want to. But there's a link to it, and you get, put in your information. And then it's you get a certificate, and you upload it into the course. Did I answer your questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Other questions? I think I just want you to know, and I think I can speak for the other professors, we are proud of you. And we love this course because we feel like students can really showcase their abilities. Now, it doesn't mean it's always easy. It doesn't, I think what feedback, and I think Alan can tell me this, we don't get a lot of negative feedback about the instructors or the team aspect in this class, almost none. What we get is there's a lot of work, but we have a very, very high success rate, meaning that this is not a course to weed people out. We want everyone to be successful, and we have an extremely high success rate. Now, we have sometimes folks that start, the first couple of weeks and something's going on in their life, and they decide to take another time when they can focus. I can remember a few semesters ago, a student sent me an email about week 2 and said, "Hey, I'm going to Hawaii for a couple of weeks with my family. You think that's a problem during the capstone?" I mean, this is not like a course where you can go and drink, margaritas on the beach and think that you can get through this. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done with it. But listen, 2 months, then you could be on the beach and having margaritas and enjoying it, because you have so much to be proud of, and so you're so close to the finish line, and don't forget that.
Yeah, I think in terms of feedback, there's it is definitely that I have never been busier, but it's like you said, there's a high success rate in this class. Generally speaking, you all know grad school's tough. It's not for everybody. If it was easy, everyone would do it. If you're good enough to get to the capstone, you're probably going to be okay. Eye on the prize, work hard, and you'll get there. So it's going to be a heck of a 2 months, but all of us want to see it be successful. All of us are here to support you. So you let us know if there's anything that you need from us to make sure that happens.
Yeah, generally what we see, people are, when they're all said and done, the course, pretty favorable about it overall. It's not one of the courses we get a lot of negative feedback on, because they have something you have something tangible. This business proposal or plan project that you're doing, Well, our hope, and I know all the professors that have taught this course, no students have been promoted, based on this. They've sent us emails. I had one that said, my whole career changed after this course because I was able to present this. So think about that in terms of, this could be a changer for you if you pick something that really can have a positive effect on you, the organization, or community as a whole. And don't forget the nonprofit, because, we care deeply about the community. And so there may be something in your community that you could make a difference and utilize what you've learned to help them. And I'll just give you one last thing. We had a student that was leadership. She had the hardest time thinking about a project. And I helped her brainstorm one day. So what's your passion? She said, to help young women. I had so many challenges and no mentorship, as a young woman in my late teens and early 20s, and I made some bad decisions. And she said, I really want to make a difference in my community. And so she started this leadership development project that she did in her community. She got backing by local politicians, local churches, community leaders, and had her own community project on leadership development for young women, where she taught transformational leadership skills. So I do want you to think in a very creative way how you could utilize your project and not get stuck. Oh gosh, I guess I'm going to have to develop a leadership development program in my organization, or I'm just stuck in a certain way. And there's so many different ways you can go. So don't limit yourself.
All right, we are running up against time here. Any final questions? Anything anybody else would like to ask any of us? All right, then I will take that resounding silence as as the cue to end this conference call. Thanks everybody for showing up tonight. I really, really appreciate it. I think it's going to be a great term. Again, we really want to see you be successful in this capstone. And well, I'm just going to leave it there. Thank you so much, y'all.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Emms. Thank you, Dr. Menon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Loughran.
Everyone.
Good night, everybody. All the best.
Bye.
Bye.